Welcome to the Ballet Help Desk podcast. My name is Jenny, and I am joined by my co-founder, Brett. We are both proud ballet moms who met backstage at our children's recital. During our kids' training, we found that resources were limited, and we relied on dance magazines and fellow parents in the lobby for information. Now that our children are embarking on their professional careers, we are excited to share our combined 20 years of experience as ballet moms with all of you. We will be bringing in experts to help make sense of this complex world of ballet training. This week, we are joined by Mark Carlson and Sandra Kerr, founders and artistic directors of the International Ballet School in Colorado Springs and Denver, Colorado. They were incredibly generous with their time, and we covered such a wide variety of topics that we will spread the entirety of our chat over 2 episodes throughout the year. This was quite a conversation, so grab a cup of coffee and a notepad as it is chock full of incredible information.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Just to give you a little bit of background on what we do, we have a website called the Ballet Help Desk, and it's designed for parents rather than for students. And the way it came about is we both have dancers who are 18. My son's in the second company of Houston Ballet, and Jenny's daughter just finished at San Francisco Ballet School and is headed off to a trainee program. So when our kids were coming up and when they told us they wanted to dance professionally, we were sort of like, what? Like, we didn't have any idea what to do. And we started looking around for resources, and there really weren't any. And so what we decided, now that our kids are kind of at the end of their training and on the cusp of a career, we really wanted to be able to give back to other parents and give them that roadmap that we never had, because we felt like we were completely flying blind. Right. So one of the things we're starting to do is talk to experts in the field like you to really kind of get feedback on different areas of ballet training to help parents better navigate this path. Great.
That's a great thing they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Where did your children train before Houston and San Francisco?
So my son was with a small studio in our neighborhood called Bravissimo. It was started by Jorge Esquivel, who used to dance with the Cuban National Ballet, and then was at San Francisco Ballet School for 4 years, and then now is in the second company at Houston.
So my daughter started at just a local rec studio, and then she moved to Ballet San Jose. And then when they folded, she moved to Marin Ballet and then San Francisco. And she's been at San Francisco for 5 years. So
were those teachers able to help you to navigate a little bit?
Not really. Company affiliated programs really prefer to work directly with their students. So my son's local studio, they were fantastic because they were former professional dancers. And so they could give us a lot of information. But, it was a different time. Jorge was in his 60s when my son was 10 when he got there. So, it was, and he was from Cuba and had done most of his dancing in Cuba. So it was just a very different background that they had versus what we were looking at.
Yeah. And most of the kids who are both at Ballet San Jose and Marin, they dance recreationally. And so they don't have aspirations to want to be a professional dancer. And Abby kind of decided she wanted to do it when she was 4. So, and then she got pretty serious. So she was the only one of her friends who went away to summer programs. She was the only, everyone kind of stayed local. And they thought I was crazy for sending her away, but I was like, I don't know. I think that's what we're supposed to do. So, and then I don't know. And I'm hoping that it's changing more and more. And that's something that we're really trying to do is open those lines of communications, especially between girl moms. Boy moms tend to form a tribe really early, but the girl moms were not nearly as helpful. And answering, I'm hoping it's going to change soon. And that's one of the things we want to build is a community of people to really feel like they can help and support each other and help each other along that road, because that wasn't something that I really found was helpful. Most people thought my kid was there to take their spot rather than let me help you integrate into the program and teach you what I've learned.
Right.
Well, things have changed an awful lot.
Yeah.
At 60, I'm 75. So in the past, when they started with summer programs, there were very few and very difficult to get in. And now there's a summer program for anybody, which is great, I think. I think that wants to go away for the summer, get away from the family and to dance. I think it's wonderful.
I think so. I think it's just fabulous.
This is just different times now
Right.
than then. So there are.
But it makes it far more complicated for the student who does want a professional career. If you auditioned for Pittsburgh Ballet Theater and they only took 75 kids and it was 3 classes of 25 kids, they looked at you all summer. You had a meeting with the artistic director of the school at the end of the year, whether you would be appropriate to stay for the full year, to possibly join the company in the future. The artistic director would come by and take a look at you. That's not what it is anymore. It's summer camp.
Right.
You're spending
Not all, of course.
more money than ever before to go. And if you are there because your child wants to possibly get into that company school's program, how do you know you're not just one of the many of summer camp or somebody that they're truly interested in? Right. That's very difficult to navigate now.
Well, of course, a good indication is scholarships,
Sure.
you know.
Why
And
don't we
they're,
let them ask their questions though, because I think we're getting off topic.
No, but I am interested in your thought on this. Like, what does that look like? What are some indicators?
well, for example, we're a very small school. We're 65 students. And we did it at our summer. We don't really advertise it. When we have had a big influx of people, it makes it more difficult for us to work with the kids that are here, that are used to us. You know, it slows things down. But there's schools that take hundreds for the summer. It's
The problem is that if you are at a higher level, you can be stuck in class with kids that are not. And then what does the teacher do? The teacher has a choice. I'm going to teach to the highest level and let the other kids kind of sink or swim, or I'm going to teach to the lowest level in the room. And the other kids are not going to be as challenged. But the problem is you don't know, you know, how are they going to make that choice? How are they going to, you know, approach that, you know? So, I mean, for us with our kids personally, you know, we tell them, look at programs that take less kids.
Right.
You know, if you really want to go away and make improvement in the summer.
well, and also with the scholarships, it can be deceiving too. Obviously, they want to get boys in, right?
Sure.
And quarter scholarships that does indicate some interest, but at the same time, if I was in a business, I would happily give out 100 quarter scholarships to make them feel good
And guarantee them to come to you, right? Because it is a business, because for them, all of those big names are competing against each other for the same pool.
Sure.
Right.
Of people that come to their summer program. It is a business.
Yeah, one
absolutely.
of my boys went to a summer program and found out that he had 3 hours, 2.5-hour back-to-back classes of pas de deux. So, you know, they need the voice, obviously.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, it's much more difficult to navigate because again, and you know, 20 years ago, it was they took a small amount who they're really interested in, high level kids, other people didn't get in. But, you know, now it's schools are tasked with making money to pay for the building, to pay for a lot of things, you know. I can't blame them, you know, but it just does make a job as a parent and even us as teachers to recommend where kids should go far more difficult.
Yeah, and we want to jump into that a little bit as we get through this, because we do have some questions specifically about summer. So that was interesting to hear because not everybody is as open-minded, shall we say, as it sounds like you guys are about summer. So before we jump into everything else, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to start International Youth Ballet Company?
Let me take it. It's actually International Ballet School. So the Youth Ballet Company is our performing group, the kids that are performing. But well, I grew up with a teacher. She was principal with New York City Ballet. Her name was Linda Yorth. And at a very young age, I knew immediately that I wanted to dance. And I lived in a town in Southern California where there was no good training. I mean, my mom drove me an hour and a half each way to dance every day, you know, because that was the option we had, you know. And So, I went on to have a professional career. I was a soloist with Düsseldorf Ballet and Deutsche Opera am Rhein in Germany. And I was a soloist with Colorado Ballet. And Mark danced for over 20 years as a soloist in all over Europe, Sweden, Germany, Canada. We both had really good careers. The last place I ended up dancing was at Colorado Ballet, and Mark was teaching at different places in Denver and the area.
If it's Wednesday, it must be Aurora.
Right. Yeah. And working for Colorado Ballet, the second company, who is co-artistic director and teaching company class. And like you said, and there were kids that were driving from an hour and a half away again to come and take class from him. And they would come wherever he was. And a group of parents approached him and said, would you consider opening a school? And at that time I was still dancing, so I was not going to be helpful in,
Sure.
I could help a little, but not, full time, obviously. And so it was a very big decision because he immediately knew I want to open a school only for serious kids.
Okay.
Even if they want to become professional, that they dance at that level.
Okay.
Right.
And
We take anybody as long as they're willing to do the work.
to do the work, yes. And that's a very huge responsibility to train kids from younger to older to get them to that place. It's not just training, it's mentoring, it's a lot, right? Sure. It's more than just showing up to teach a class, and so he decided to take the plunge, which is he opened up the school in the Springs, partly because that's where those parents were, and partly because he felt like it was not the right thing to do to be employed by people in Denver and then open up a school in Denver.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
That takes a level of integrity that not everybody has.
Yeah.
But we just felt like that wasn't right,
That
So
makes
he, and like you said, after our son was born and I wasn't working for Colorado Ballet, and it'd been some years since he taught at schools in Denver, we figured, okay, it's fair game now,
Right.
So then we opened up a school in Denver, and I mean, it was small, one studio, a very dedicated group of kids, and it grew. And we've never had a large school. We won't take more than 12 kids in a class.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we have a small number of classes, and a lot of our kids, I mean, they started with us when they were little, and graduated and went off to, they've been with us for 10 or 12 years,
Right. So they grew up there.
They grew up with us, and we're their ballet mom and dad, as they always like to say.
We have children from some of our students taking with us now.
Yes. We've been around for a long time. Yeah.
That's so nice that you have the next generation.
Yeah.
So we have kids dancing in over 30 different companies all over the world,
Okay.
And that's what we do. We see the large schools, and we see that the quality is so much less.
Right.
Because, for instance, if I have a group of young children, I'm crawling on the floor.
Sure.
Every child. And I mean, all the way up until they're like 10, 11, 12, and I'm still going to every child and saying, what did we talk about Monday? What was the correction I gave you, Sally, on Thursday? Sam, what was the correction I gave Sally on Thursday? What have we been working on? And, you build a class that way. I mean, so it's important for us to be able to do that for our kids. And it's important too, that when it comes to all of the things, coaching for competition, audition seasons, the more kids you have, the less communication you have.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. So you brought up the small class sizes, which is fantastic. And you also brought up that you have dancers dancing all over the world. So talk to us a little bit about, if you spot a kid who has a lot of potential and you think, that kid probably has what it takes if they keep developing to have a professional career. How do you initiate things with the student? And then also, how do you involve the parents in those conversations?
Never with the student first. Never.
Okay.
Always with the parent first, and not with the student present.
And same if there's scholarships involved, the student doesn't know, we just tell the parent.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, do you have a few minutes of time? May I talk to you? I think your child has tremendous potential in the field of ballet, I mean, for us, it's too, like, we have an extended program. We call it extended because it's extra hours outside the after school classes. And, if you really want a career in dance, you have to have the hours,
Right.
We've always known that. And, there's a book out there by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. He has a whole chapter called the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
It just takes more hours, so, we talk about, and for us, we don't like to do that when they're very young.
Mm-hmm.
We give them the appropriate amount of hours they need,
Right.
When it gets to junior high school, that's when you have to start with even more hours than maybe what after school could offer you.
Sure.
And so, try to talk to the parent and say, if this is something your child really wants to do,
Mm-hmm.
you have to consider, these hours and this amount of time, because you can't make up that time.
Right.
There will be a point it's too late, and if you're not sure, you really do. That's the hard part, right? You have to make a decision.
Yeah.
It's terrifying for a parent, but for us as teachers, we know, like, if you decide you want to be serious in your years during high school, it's going to be hard to make up that time.
Right.
And you're behind where everybody else is. That, you know what I mean? And then kids get discouraged, and then it just doesn't happen.
So at what age do you typically talk to parents if you've identified a kid? Like, one of the things that we hear all the time is, how do I know if my dancer is good enough to make it? And you see these 10-year-old prodigies at YAGP who are, they win the Hope Award, and then you don't hear from them again. So
I mean, okay. So when you're looking at YAGP, you have to consider, when they're that young, it's their potential.
Sure.
Right? Their physical potential.
Right.
And maybe some artistry too. I mean, that's not very developed as a 10-year-old.
Hope they don't burn out.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
And then when they're older, it's, what can you do now?
Right.
So,
Sure.
I mean, when they're that young, you can identify a parent and say they have this possibility.
Right.
When they're 12 or 13, now you're saying they have the possibility, you have to give them the opportunity.
Okay.
That those are two different things, right?
Sure. When parents are resistant to their kid maybe pursuing the ballet career because we are
Right.
educated people. We are focused on education first, but the kid really wants to dance, but the parents are kind of unsure. Have you navigated that, and kind of what do you kind of say to parents when they feel that way?
It's difficult. We've had kids who were so talented, and they got to a point where their parents wanted them to pursue their education, and it's a pity, but they're happy. They're happy.
Yeah. I think that there are the kids who it is a burning desire inside of them, and nothing else is going to make them happy.
Right.
Nothing. That we've had kids that are like, people are like, what's your plan B? And they're like, I don't have plan B. This is it. Like, I'm going to make this happen, because my life will not be a happy life if I don't make this happen.
Sure.
Don't
Kids.
you think that's something that a dancer has to have?
Have to have it.
Talent
is not enough.
No.
We've had so many beautiful kids and talented and just, winning everything. And that drive inside there, if your parent can kind of talk you out of it, then you don't have that drive.
Right.
You're not saying to your parent, like, I have to do this.
Right.
I want to love everything else. That's what we've learned over 25 years. It doesn't matter how talented. It doesn't matter. If they don't have that drive, it's just not going to happen.
If it is late, and I say, I understand you don't drive, but you have to be ready and show your mom or dad that you're ready to go, and
right.
Take a little bit of trouble.
It's tough because it's not an easy path. And so, it's not like you just graduate from high school, go to college and get a job. It's every step of the way, it's hard. And so if you don't have that drive to really want to do it, it's probably not worth it.
Well,
that
yeah.
goes back to the same thing, how summer intensives have changed, but also apprenticeships. They used to be really an apprenticeship where
Right.
you would, prepared and helped by the other generation, and
You would dance.
I have to say groomed in this day and age, but groomed,
Yeah.
to be able to take your place as a full member. And now, boy, you better, as a trainee, be as good as the kids in the quarter ballet,
Yeah.
Or soloist.
right?
If you want to,
Yeah.
Right.
The other side too, okay, say you have a dancer with a big drive and they want to dance, and the parent is, and we have a lot of parents, let's face it, ballet is expensive.
Yeah.
People's who are, their parents are educated, highly educated, and have good jobs, and they want that for their kids, of course. It's like dancers make how much money? They're
Right.
horrified,
I've heard parents say, what's my return on investment? It's like, I don't know, nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, in the money part,
yeah.
But, I tell people stories like there was a dancer, and then one of the companies I danced with, he retired as a dancer at 40, got into Stanford, went to school, and is a lawyer.
Right.
Sure.
What I mean, he continued education throughout his dancing career.
Right.
And, also, you have to consider dancing is an education. It
Right.
is its own education. The higher you get up in the career, the higher you're regarded, right? In the professional field, it is its own education. I mean, still sad to say that even if you're highly regarded, the salary is still not going to be high. You choose it because you love it,
Right.
Sure. Absolutely.
But,
So if we could shift a little bit to that education part, and let's talk about training a little bit. So from ages, most of our readers and their kids are between the ages of 12 to 15. So what would you kind of say are some of the most important building blocks at that age if kids really want to be on a serious ballet path?
You have to be at a good school. You have to be at a good school. You have to be at a school that is not only teachers have had professional careers, and are educated about what's going on in the dance world right now.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you have to be at a San Francisco Ballet or a Houston Ballet. There are many good schools in the United States right now developing good dancers. I would argue that those schools are developing better dancers in those younger age categories than the better schools are.
For example, 2 years ago, Claudio called me. He asked if I was interested in taking over the men's program at Houston Ballet.
Yeah.
And I thought about it for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
I love what we have here.
Sure. So why would you guys argue that you guys are doing more for your dancers? Like, what do you feel like you guys have special at International Ballet School or International Ballet?
If you look at, there's a lot of big companies, right? And you look at the school, who is getting into the trainee program? Is it the kids from their lower school?
Right.
The kids from outside?
Right.
Who is then getting an apprenticeship? Who is then moving on to a company contract, right? As you get through those progressions, it gets less and less and less and less,
Right.
And I'm not saying every school, I'm just saying when you pick a school and somebody accepts you, you really have to look like, okay, who is it? They say, well, kids from our school, kids that auditioned for your school at 16 or 17 or 18 and got a traineeship that were from outside and then got an apprenticeship, or kids that have been at that school since they were 8 or 9.
It's funny you say that. We've talked to parents over and over again about this, and we actually just put a blog post up about this on Monday, is that there's a real difference between the levels in a company affiliated school. So, just because you're in the children's program at, San Francisco Ballet or Houston or wherever, that's the children's program. And there is no guarantee you're going from that all the way through. What we've seen is that the vast majority of the kids that end up going into these companies come in at the finishing levels.
You just have to really pay attention to, what the school is doing and what they are producing and where people are coming into the school. You can't just take, the word of, well, we're producing. As you said,
Sure.
you come in, sir, that's not you producing.
As parents who, like Brett and I, we didn't know what we were looking for, right? And so we tended to go with like a name because we didn't know what we were doing. So like as parents are starting to figure out that some of the smaller schools really do have a lot of benefits and pluses, what are some things that you really feel like parents should be looking for those building blocks that will kind of help them differentiate between, an okay and a really good school to help their kids stay on that path?
So a big thing to look for is, smaller schools are not hiding their accomplishments. They are shouting them out loud on Instagram, on their web pages, and then don't just look at like how many kids have won how many of these competitions. Forget it. Don't, you know what I mean? Look at how many kids have gotten into companies.
Yeah.
How many kids have gotten into companies? How many kids have gotten traineeships? That is the key of, that school is taking a kid from young to the teenage years and helping them get to where they want to be. If any school says, I will get your kid a job, they are lying. They are lying.
Yeah.
None of us can do that. I could call up schools that I have good relationships with, and those teachers know our students, and they would say, hey, we're looking for kids for the summer program, or, possibly kids to audition for trainee. Do you have anybody? And I could say, yes, we have, maybe these many kids graduating this year, or, we could, send them your way, but that's not going to get them a job. They still have to show up. They have to audition. If they don't like them, they're not going to take them. I don't care if you are Baryshnikov. They are not going to take somebody they're not interested in. Not maybe traineeships, because as Mark said, even at Colorado Ballet, there would be 50 that would walk through the door.
Right.
Ballet mistress would maybe use 10.
Okay.
By the time
Nutcracker,
they were all
15
gone.
left,
They were gone, because why would you stay and pay for an apartment? And all of the costs involved, and you already see the writing on the wall. They're not going to use you,
So, question about that. Not specific about the number of trainees, but what's your philosophy on when a student should leave a local school or a school like yours to go off to a company affiliated program? There's advantages and disadvantages to staying and going, but what's your philosophy on that?
Well, obviously the child has to be mature enough to leave.
Sure.
First off, but we tell our students, by the time you're 17, you better be ready to go into corps de ballet. You're not going to get that. You're going to be training for 2 years,
right.
hopefully apprentice for 2 years, and then first year corps. But by 17, you better be able to do all the things you need to do. And I
could just tell you our personal, kids who stayed with their family, and we have good training and a lot of performing opportunities, and and an extended program, and we offer all of that to our kids. We are able to give them those opportunities.
Sure.
Kids who have stayed with us until they've been like 17 or 18 and have gone on to do the trainee and then getting into a company, and those are the kids that are still dancing now.
Okay.
The kids left when they were 13 or 14 or 15, every single one of them has quit.
One.
What?
Nicola.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So one.
Yeah, one. Well, when I was in Colorado Springs, there was this little girl, and she was just beautiful. But National Ballet of Canada offered her.
Yeah, and she's successful. She's still dancing now.
To go there at
one
13.
A lot, because we used to think like we can't offer what they're offering.
This was the year that we just brought in the 2 senior teachers from the Royal Ballet, straight from Royal Ballet to Colorado Springs. If she wanted the training, but her parents saw the big building and all the professional dancers, and
sure.
She did great, of course, but she didn't need to leave home at 13.
Yeah, that can be pretty alluring when you see that the building and the studios and all the headshots on the walls.
We're parents too, for that side of it. Ballet is hard, and going away to those places is hard. There are some people that are your friends, but there's some people that are not your friends,
Right.
And it's a big mental game, and it's really hard to, when you're growing up in those years and you're very vulnerable. I think for girls, their bodies and how their bodies change, and where is the support for that,
Right. For sure.
Boys too, they're just less mature than girls are. We have a boy,
Yeah.
and boys in our school, and I'm always like, frontal lobes not fully developed,
Right.
a little grace here,
Yes. If I could tell you how many times I say that to my teenager.
Yeah. But there is no grace at those big schools.
Sure.
There's no grace.
So building
there,
with parents trying to navigate the pre-pro path, aside from your philosophy of maybe not sending your kid away quite so early, what do you think are some other mistakes that parents kind of make in those novice decisions, helping their kids navigate those paths?
I think that when a large school sees a very talented kid and they really want them, and a lot of schools really want them, they will pressure the parent. You have to make this decision now, because if you don't, your child will never dance.
Right.
And we will never take them again.
But my philosophy is, they like them now, they're going to like them even more.
And they're better. You know what I mean? 3
Yeah.
years from now, we're going to look at that person and say, well, I'm not going to take them because at 15, they turned us down for a summer program. They're not going to do that. If that dancer is beautiful and well-trained and has their head on straight, which is so important.
Right.
So important,
Can you talk a little bit about that? Can you talk, there is a belief that there's a blacklist out there. Where if you turn a school down, that, you're sort of off the radar and never to come back on.
I think
I think
there could be
is
individuals that are like that, but I think that it's not necessarily a blacklist. For example, I had a girl who who auditioned for SAB, and she went instead to PNB, and the next year did both auditions, was accepted to SAB, but she went on scholarship to PNB. And then the next year they said, well, the last 2 years we've offered you to come and you haven't come. And she said, well, I had a scholarship at PNB. So they gave her a scholarship.
Nice.
Well, she's a smart girl then.
Yeah.
Again, they want those talented kids in the program. Of course they do.
Right.
Of course they do. Everybody wants the same group of kids,
Sure.
And it's make the best decision for your child. And it's not just dance. You know what I mean? If they are unhappy and don't have their heads on straight, and you know what I mean, they're not going to dance anyway. They're going to quit. How many kids quit through this process?
Sure.
It's not everybody makes it, and it's not because they didn't have the talent, and I think too, a lot of kids with that drive, they also have really soft hearts, that's what makes them good dancers. They show their hearts on stage. They're being vulnerable. You know what I mean? You can only get it bashed so many times as a kid without them saying, I don't want to do this
back to the
anymore.
blacklist. I mean, I always tell them, if you're offered a scholarship, you're not going to take it, blame it on the parents. My parents won't let.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Or they won't let me go yet.
Yeah,
Right.
So
yeah.
So do you really encourage your students to kind of come to you and talk to you about offers that they have, and you kind of help them parse through what to take, be either year-round offers or summer offers? Do you feel like that's a collaboration that you encourage?
There's only one or two that parents want to go their own way, and
nothing we can do about it,
yeah.
right? I mean, we give our advice and they either take it or they don't take it.
We tell them, identify the companies that you're interested in, look into them, see what their repertoire is, how many dancers they have, how many seasons they work,
what their body types are,
we'll fit in with that,
right?
and then try to get into those summer programs. And we say it might not be as good a summer program as here, or another company that you're not interested in might have a better school, but by the time you're 17, you want to be identifying those
Yeah, and even
companies and then go there.
And even earlier,
Yeah.
when they're
Oh,
14,
right,
15, 16, we're like, go away because you should see what it's like. You should see what that company is like. You should see what that school is like. You should start to, because, how do you know that that's something you're interested in? How do you know you really love balancing unless you're exposed to that kind of work? You know what I mean?
Right.
Right. How do you know you really are more classically based unless you can see that kind of work? It's you have to kind of identify those things. And also as kids get older, their dreams change and what they love changes and you know what I mean? They develop more, but it's good to be exposed to those things so you can kind of make an informed decision.
When a parent asks us, does my child have what it takes for a career?
Right.
This is what I tell them. I say there are lots of possibilities to dance without being in ABT or Royal Ballet or New York City Ballet. There's, small companies with maybe 10 paid dancers and the rest are school advanced students and things like that. And I point out, speaking of Boulder, there was a woman there. Boulder Ballet now is a little bit more up than it was then, but their ballerina was an astrophysicist whose group had been nominated for Nobel Prize. So
That's amazing.
So it's possible to still have a love for ballet, to be able to dance, to be able to fulfill those dreams, and also be an astrophysicist.
Sure.
Sure. I mean, it really sounds like you work really in collaboration with your students. So with that, we kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about communication with your parents and with your students and how that kind of works. So we have a lot of readers who ask us what we think makes an ideal relationship between a dancer and a home studio, but we'd love to hear how you guys kind of describe that perfect relationship and what that looks like.
That everybody is the parents' support and our support and the kids' goals are all aligned, right? And so, the only way that happens is through a lot of communication. Parent teacher conferences, I think, are important. We kind of got off of those during COVID because COVID. Sure. But we used to do that, at least once a year, and especially with the older kids, and also we always have it out there. If you have any questions or concerns, we are always available.
People have our cell phones.
Yeah, they have our cell phone numbers.
We're a small school too. If
right.
we had 1,200 students, we might not do that.
Right.
Right.
So,
Sure.
That's really important that everybody's on the same page. And again, what an 8-year-old's dream is and what a 16-year-old's dream is are
very different.
Two different things, and we communicate with our kids, even the ones that are in companies and are 25 years old. You know what I mean? They call us and text us and and
That's
I'm
so
like,
nice.
hey, what did your 16-year-old self want? A job in a ballet company? You have that, so you know what I mean? So now is the hard thing because it's a bit of a slog. And if you're ambitious, you have to move through the ranks. It doesn't go quite as fast as you want to. You worry about every role you got or didn't get, you know what I mean? And no matter what, you're worried. Well, I got the role, but I'm not first cast or opening night. What does that mean? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, all of those things, and it's constantly always, you're analyzing everything to understand where your pecking order is, I guess, you would
Every
say.
day. Sure. And it changes so often. That's so lovely that your students really feel like they can still lean on you like that. So with that, like if you see a concern that you have for a student, maybe in the studio or something going on, how do you approach that? As studio owners and artistic directors, how do you have those like harder conversations with parents, and how do you kind of parse it apart so it's not quite so emotional and reactionary, or parents are screaming or whatever, I mean, not that we're speaking from personal experience, but, but
We had one case where boy and a girl became boyfriend, girlfriend. And the moment I figured that out, I talked to them both and I said, boy's name if you guys break up and there's a hassle, she's staying, you're going. So anyway,
No, but it depends on the concern. If it's a health concern, if it's something where I feel like the kid is not moving in a healthy direction, again, never the kid, always the parent. And we've had those meetings, the parents are like, my kid's fine.
I see.
Okay. I'm concerned. I see this, but again, it's not my child, it's my student, and I see, but the parent really has to take control, of the situation. I mean, in the end, we want the same thing the parent does, which is not the ultimate. The ultimate goal is not to have the career or to dance. I mean, I guess it is, but the ultimate goal is for our kids to be happy and love what they do and healthy, right? That's the ultimate goal.
Sure. I mean,
whatever direction that goes,
yeah,
you have to allow for things to go that direction,
Sure. So how do you address maybe some of those harder conversations? Like, you're seeing a girl or a boy and their weight is rapidly dropping. They're really, and you're seeing some unhealthy patterns that way. How do you kind of initiate that conversation? And then what are some ways that parents can really kind of talk to their studio director to kind of talk about concerns on their end to help them navigate that a little bit?
Well,
again, it's a little easier for us because we have a small school, but
yeah. Again, contact the parents. And, the thing is that you, as a parent, you have to talk to your child about weight, and you have to talk to your child about the right things to eat, the healthy way to live, a healthy way to maintain weight. I mean, when I was a kid, I turned in a diary of all the food I ate every week, and we got weighed every week. I mean, that was ballet school for us.
Wow. Yeah.
And I know a lot of parents like, oh my God, that's horrible. Well, the thing is that this is ballet. Your body is your tool. If your tool is not in good shape, you are never going to get a job. Never, ever, ever. No one will take you. The problem is it's become so difficult to talk about. You're not allowed to talk about it, really. And that's hard, because if you don't talk about it, but the kids see, like, that's what a dancer looks like, so that's what I have to look like. So then they're going to take it upon themselves to solve that problem for themselves. And a lot of them have all of these stupid old world notions of like, well, I just won't eat, or I'll have 3 lettuce leaves a day, or whatever they think, a dancer is. And that's so dumb, because dancers eat a lot. You have to eat the right things, you have to, it's just like a bodybuilder, or you have to have a certain amount of nutritional, and that doesn't mean no food. It means the right kinds of food.
We've had nutritionists come in and speak with the students for summer intensives and things like that.
That with the older kids too, so they get a good idea of like, what is healthy foods, what are healthy choices, how much food should I be eating in a day. If we see a problem, we try to connect parents to a nutritionist. Again,
we never tell a kid they're fat.
or to
no. But like, when do you start those conversations with your students? Like, do you start with them when they're younger, talking about healthy eating and proper, and how to fuel their bodies the right way?
I think as a parent, I would. And I mean, the difficult thing is,
what she means in the studio.
In the studio, we bring in a nutritionist. I don't have conversations about food and skinny or big with kids ever. If I see a problem, I will talk to a parent. We bring in a nutritionist, so that information is out there. It's hard because it's a really taboo subject, and a lot of parents don't want us to talk to their kids. But it's also hard because, you're a family, you come home, you eat, you're not going to make 5 different dinners for your kids. You're going to make one dinner for your kids. So if the family is health conscious and the parents are like, okay, we're really, really going to eat nutritious and well, because we've got a kid who's an athlete and wants to be a dancer, and we're just going to support that. You know what I mean? If the problems kind of have to happen, I think, when a family is like, well, the dancer kid is on their own. They have to figure out their own nutrition because I'm not going to cook the same food for them
I see.
or different food from them than what the rest of the family is eating.
Sure.
That's when there's problems, because how is that kid supposed to A, figure that out, B, go to the grocery store and get all the right kinds of foods I mean, that's hard,
Sure.
Right.
That is a family decision. Like, we got to kind of support that kind of eating for our kid, and we all kind of have to do it a little bit,
Sure. The way they internalize it is really different. And it really
Right.
promotes that other kind of aspect in a family dynamic, which
Right.
is really not healthy.
Right. No, and so, and again, like, teachers can only go so far, right? Those are family dynamics, and, families have to figure it out, and I mean, we've seen it too go the wrong direction, with kids. And, I have an initial talk, and, we talk about, and if the parent wants me to talk about healthy things, with the kid, I will do that,
Sure.
but then they kind of have to initiate that process, right? Of, I mean, I think personally, raising a kid, it's very hard to be like, you can eat anything you want. And here's a bag of Skittles for a snack. And all of a sudden, when puberty hits, it's like, oh, you can't eat like that anymore. We're going to do a whole 360, you know what I mean? And totally change everything you like to eat or don't like to eat. We're now changing it all. Like, then the kid feels like, I'm being deprived, right? Sure. Eating becomes a huge thing, you know what I mean? And you kind of have to naturally like kind of start that when they're younger, and not even really talk about it, but like, this is healthy food, this is what we eat, this is the majority of what our meals are. I think when you wait until they're older and they've gained a lot of weight, and oh my gosh, it's so much harder,
Yeah, I think you're right. Puberty does not smile on everybody the same way.
It is a cruel beast.
It doesn't, Yeah. And I mean, that's the other thing, is if you're in a big school and puberty hits, there's no forgiveness.
Right.
Right. I think is crazy, because they have the money and the resources for nutritionists, for good foods in the cafeteria, for, you know what I mean? All of those things. There's so much education out there, that dancers can be, oh my gosh, so strong and so healthy and still, maintain a healthy body, I mean, the other thing too, that's, I think, really important to realize is everybody's body is different, right? You can have a Japanese girl that is like tiny, like a little bird, and you can have a 6-foot tall dancer. It doesn't matter. You have to be in the best shape for your body, right? Your body.
Right.
Not,
I think that makes
you have to look like that. That's not just the only ballet dancer that's out there. There's a lot of different bodies out there, heights and but the one commonality is they are in very good shape.
Sure. Right. So wanted to switch gears a little bit, and you guys spoke a little bit about COVID, and we wanted to kind of ask you guys what you, there seems to be like a big bottleneck in terms of hiring and even admissions into company affiliated schools. We were wondering what you guys have kind of seen in terms of changing of the industry since the pandemic.
I mean, I think that a lot of kids that COVID was their graduating years, and they wanted to find a traineeship or I think parents were like, nope, you're not going to dance. You're going to go to school. I mean, when they saw like what the devastation of ballet companies, I mean, I think people could not see a future in it, so I think we lost a lot of really talented dancers. That's one, from our personal experience with the school, especially for younger kids. I mean, there was a year, even if they were in the studio, I couldn't touch them.
Right.
Touch them. And my training and anybody's good training, you can't tell an 8-year-old pull up. You have to put your hands on their tummies and squeeze. You know what I mean? You can't say, squeeze your popo. You have to they don't know what that means. You know what I mean? You have to take your fingers and kind of pokey their butt cheeks. They're like, and they're like, okay, that's squeezing your pupil means,
I don't
And-
teach the little
No,
ones.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they have to understand that, you have to lift an elbow, you have to place a finger, you have to push shoulders down, we lost a lot of that, you know what I mean? And I had to go back and really fix a lot of those things for kids. It put them a little behind. We're catching up now, I feel like, but it's taken this long,
But we kept performances going. We did outdoor performances.
I think everybody
with
did,
mask,
right?
without mask.
Yeah.
That
It's a
Nutcracker,
wonderful shift.
out a huge place,
Yeah.
a photography place, and brought them in groups with masks, and
Yeah.
then put together a video,
But I mean,
so we had a whole
industry,
Nutcracker.
companies got money from the government, and a lot of them were like, "Woo, we're in the black! Like we've never been in the black." You know what I
Right.
mean? But I think when I'm not going to say COVID was over, but let's say that we could go back to a more normal way
Right.
of life. I think everybody, all us included, everybody thought we're all going to go back to normal and it's going to be the same audiences and everybody's going to come back to the theater and it's all going to be great. And it did not happen. I think a lot of reasons. I think a lot of ballet audiences, let's face it, are older people.
Right.
A lot of them don't want to go back into large groups,
But
to
even
sit in an
with
audience.
with our
and watch, just to say.
Nutcracker last year, we were happy that we got 50% of what
Sure.
we usually had.
Yeah.
We
But it's
sold about 1,800
50%.
tickets.
You know what I
and Sold
mean?
900, which it was okay. Now we just this last weekend had a performance, and we had for our spring performance, we usually would have 12 or 13, or spring, summer, and now we had 500.
Yeah.
So
Right.
But I think ballet
Half.
companies are the same. They're not as I mean, we're a small school, but you know what I mean? They are not selling the tickets that they were. And I think also part of it too is that just expenses have gone up for people
Sure.
so much, especially older people with fixed incomes.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're making sacrifices. Maybe one of those sacrifices is buying tickets to the ballet,
Mhm.
But
I
in
think
terms of training, the kids that you're training, are you seeing the hiring rates at the same pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, or are you seeing a dip?
it's a dip. I mean, Europe is downsizing a lot of big companies, in Europe, like Dutch National, and they're downsizing. I mean, their heat bill went from 250,000 euros to over €1 million a year. The
Wow.
heat bill,
Crazy.
yeah, it's, you know what I mean? It's going down because there's less places, you know what I mean? It's kind of odd because there was such a freeze during COVID of didn't matter if you were unhappy in the company you were with, you were not going to audition anywhere else. You had a job and you were just like, thank you, I have a job,
Nobody was leaving.
Nobody was leaving. And now then there was started to be the normal shift starting to happen again, where people were kind of like, okay, I'm going to look around. I'm going to see what other offers. I'm going to do some auditions. And now I feel like it's once people started doing that, they realized there isn't a lot out there. I mean, again, one of the big competitions had a big job fair, and literally, I mean, a handful of people got offered something.
Mhm.
I mean, there's 300 people there,
And
there were supposed to be 12 directors.
there were only two.
There were only 2, and there were very few little tiny jobs.
Right. So post-pandemic, what is one change you would really like to see happen in the ballet world?
I think that competitions are a great thing. And I think we do them because they give our kids a lot of opportunity, and we're always about audition for everybody, do everything. I mean, not Star Search competitions, but if it's a real thing and people are going to show up from real places, show up. You don't know what opportunity you're going to get from it unless you're there,
Right, exactly. I mean, I tell them, maybe you don't want to go to this school, audition anyway, so you can feel comfortable and try to take that comfort into a real audition.
The competitions and Instagram glorify the 10 pirouettes, or glorify I can wrap my leg around my head 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
glorify the extremely thin, body types that are not sustainable. They glorify a lot of negative things. And I feel like when we came up through dance, we learned from our teachers, we learned from reading books about the history of the ballet world, we read dance magazines, we went to museums, we studied art and music and the history and how art and music influenced dance. And
I had to watch ballet on, a big 16 millimeter reel to reel.
Yeah. But we were sucked in every bit of information. But the thing is, the information was real information because there wasn't like anybody could just put anything out there.
Sure.
Professionals put things out there. So it was real information, So we were educated in a way that we got real information. Now I think kids get bombarded with information. I had a little sit down with my kids and I said, since they're our new baby, name me a ballerina that really inspires you, or a ballet dancer who really inspires you, that's a professional, that you love to watch perform and you look at all their stuff up on YouTube. And I had a kid who named a person who doesn't even dance anymore and just has a blog. And I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, you're not looking at the right things. So like I try to teach them, like, okay, Google ballet companies, find the principal dancers on there, look them up, see what inspires you. They're not, a lot of them doing 10 pirouettes. It is an art form. It's an art form. The end. You know what I mean? Yeah. If the person on, Instagram that's doing 10 pirouettes, you don't know though, that they're boring as hell and you don't want to watch them do, Giselle for 2 hours, she cannot carry the ballet. That, you know what I mean? But they all think like, that's what's important. I got to be able to do 10 turns. That's what's important. I got to be able, you know what I mean? To look like this. That's what's important. And all of the crazy things that people do to get there. It's not reality.
Right. I mean, yeah, kids definitely have a really skewed view because of social media. I mean, back in the day when you didn't have those kinds of things, you only knew people in your tiny pod. And then maybe if you went to a summer program, now you're exposed to worldwide what kids are doing at your age. And, it really gives kid a very, very skewed version because everyone only puts out their best video. Nobody's putting all the times they fell. So unfortunately, we're kind of coming to our end of our time. We've taken up so much of your time, and we're so grateful that you have given us so much of your valuable time. What is like one thing you would really like parents to take away from this conversation that we've had today?
You want be smart about the choices you make for your child. There's not one path to get there. There are so many different paths, and there's not one kind of kid. And you have to be smart about who your kid is and and what they want. It's a really careful line of don't hold them back, but don't let them drive the car. They're children.
Right.
And so many parents let their kid drive the car, and you can't take the big names and say, hey, that's going to be great and everything's going to be great and it's all going to work out. Maybe, but maybe not. You have to really educate yourself. What are the good schools? Who is producing? When are the big schools taking you and really able to do something with you? Who is helping you along in your career, and also to really keep your eyes and ears open on your kid, because kids change and their dreams change. And sometimes they're so afraid to say, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, that's such great advice.
That is great.
Like, they feel so pressured and that no one will love them anymore if they decide to really say, this is not for me, And like I said, we all just want our kids to be happy and healthy humans, and if this is their passion, we want to support them in that. But, pay attention, because like I said, an 8-year-old's dream is far different from an 18-year-old's.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. We are so very grateful.
We would like to thank Sandra and Mark for a wonderful conversation. Please remember that we are not experts and the opinions given on this episode are for entertainment purposes only. If you would like to learn more about International Ballet School, please visit their website at internationalballetschool.net. If you liked what you heard on this episode, please take a moment to help us spread the word. Leave us a review on your preferred podcast platform, tell a friend, and share on your social media. Also, as your dancers return home from their summer intensives, please head over to theballethelpdesk.com and leave us an anonymous review of the program. Help your fellow dance parents by letting them learn all about the good, the bad, and everything in between. To stay in the loop on all of our latest content, subscribe to our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Until next time, have a great day.